welcome to another episode. Today's a little bit special. Someone in particular asked me to talk a little bit more about some of my Star Wars knowledge. So, while I did talk to them a little bit about some information about Star Wars, I thought it would be interesting to talk to them about the different kinds of TIE fighters. Now, this picture does not actually include all the TIE fighters. There are a few that are not on here, and I'll get into those later. But I figured I'd start talking about I'd go through this in rows. So we'll start with the TIE V-38. The V-38 is an assault fighter. Eventually it was modified and turned into the TIE Phantom, which, as you can see on the picture, is... Anyways. That was interesting. Computer hiccup. Anyways, it up until they started doing some more interesting things with it, like with the Phantom and the Hunter and the experimental Mark III, and eventually what they turned into the Vader's personal ship, as well as the Emperor's personal guard. The Quandanium steel solar panel wings, which I don't think I need to explain what those are. They're the wings on the TIE fighters. They were attached directly to the hull instead of how you're familiar with most TIE fighters, who have sort of a pylon connecting them. It didn't possess a spherical cockpit like pretty much all of them. And for the most part, this was used during the Galactic Civil War, and almost exclusively on one planet. It is mentioned in the book Phantoms in the Dark, Strongholds of Resistance, and it does appear in Star Wars Rebel Assault 2, The Hidden Empire. Not really a huge amount left to mention about it. It does possess 3 wings, and the cockpit is surprisingly similar to the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon, actually. Moving right along, we can head to the TIE Shuttle, which its specific destination is the TIE SHVIP shuttle. For that shuttle, it was pretty much designed to ferry commanding officers from one Star Destroyer to another Star Destroyer. Could fit up to four non-pilots. It was based off of the TIE Bomber, which I'll get in the TIE SA Bomber. I suppose I should mention that almost all TIE fighters are based off of the Sienar fleet systems. They're the main manufacturers. They're cheap. For the Battle of Hoth in 3 ABY, which is 3 years after, ABY stands for After Battle of Yavin, which would be the fight in Episode 4, A New Hope. So they were used mostly for transportation. The second, you see the main one, which is the cockpit where the pilot would be, and then the large tube on the side is completely empty. It's hollow. It's used for transporting cargo and troops. It's not really it does possess twin ion engines, which is pretty normal, but no hyperdrive like normal TIE fighters do not come with hyperdrive. It does come with a shield generator, but pretty basic stuff. It wasn't really used for the public, since it was almost exclusively used for amongst Star Destroyers. It appeared in the Galactic Civil War. I believe it shows up in the movie of Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. It does. It was used quite extensively during episode, well, not during the episodes, but effectively it appears quite a lot during the timeline of episode 4, 5, and 6, and it kind of fell out of favor for the most part. Most people ended up using different forms of transportation. You can you can find it in Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back novel, the junior novel, the movie, Empire Strikes Back, Fate of the Jedi, and Dark Knight's Devilry. And it's not exactly the most well known. It's most of that comes from the fact that it's had some relatively limited uses, being a transport ship. Now we'll get into some of the more exciting ones. As you can tell by the third one, the TIE Experimental Mark 1, it doesn't look like a TIE fighter. It has one wing, and it has what looks to be 2 cockpits. However, the TIE Bizarro, which is what it's also known as, was part of the experimental series. They never ended up finishing it. However, while one pod has the cockpit, the second cockpit, well, quote-unquote cockpit, has a turbo laser, which a normal TIE fighter would not possess. They still have the twin ion engines, which makes it a little bit faster since there's since there's a total of 2 twin ion engines. However, while it does possess hyperdrive, the pilots are not in control of the hyperdrive. It's controlled by a central ship. Let's see, other things that might be interesting about it. It was designed to combat the A-Wings. However, the A-Wings were still vastly superior. It only appears in Star Wars X-Wing Alliance. So, while it does have a titanium alloy hull, it doesn't have any shielding. And it only appeared during the Rebellion era. If we go to the TIE Experimental Mark II, it's basically just a standard TIE fighter with 2 turbo laser turrets on the sides of the outer wing hubs. It's also known as the TIE Big Gun. Again, almost exclusively used during prototype testing. It also only appears in the Star Wars X-Wing Alliance. But this one does come with relatively high maneuverability, but it does have some limitations due to the fact that it's got lasers on the outsides of its wings. The TIE Experimental Mark III, on the other hand, it's modified after the TIE IN Interceptor, but instead of laser cannons, it has warhead launchers mounted on the outer wing hubs. As you can plainly tell, it's got 2 of them. It's almost exclusively the same as the TIE Interceptor, but it has slightly reduced maneuverability and speed. And because all of the experimental Mark systems were not ever fully finished, they were all remotely controlled by a ETR-3 escort transport, which held all of the specifics. Almost all they were experimenting with the M3 shield generators, trying to see if it was better or worse with or without it. They didn't really go into battle too much, since they never made it out of prototype stages. But again, also appears only in Star Wars X-Wing Alliance. But they did appear in the Battle of the Space Station Obsidian. However, they didn't get used after that. So you can kind of guess how much the Empire decided that they liked it. The TIE Experimental Mark IV, also known as the TIE Bomb, not TIE Bomber, TIE Bomb, super basic. It's a missile. It's a space-guided missile using TIE Fighter technology. Also appears only in Star Wars X-Wing Alliance. It doesn't have one booster engine, which is a little bit different. Normally, TIE Fighter only comes with one twin ion engine. This one does come with an additional booster engine, in addition to the twin ion engine. It had no defensive capabilities. It's a missile using TIE Fighter technology. Not particularly interesting. But if we move right along to the Chiss Clawcraft, this one wasn't actually used much by the Empire. It used Chiss technology with Imperial technology, and it was mostly flown by the Chiss, which are a different species. The only thing that really stands the same is the fact that they have the same cockpit, and the same ion drive mount. However, the wings, as you can tell, are very different. They're slightly modeled after the X-Wing strike foils, but since they were reshaped to be sort of claw foils, they actually come with some LS7.2 laser cannons. Might not be particularly interesting to you, but I suppose I could mention that they're used on most of the TIE Fighters, most exclusively around Episode 6, The Battle of Endor. They were a lot faster at recharging, so it allowed you to fire your lasers a lot quicker than the LS1 laser cannon. Both were used by the Empire as well, but the Chiss Clawcraft was not Empire used for the most part. You can't tell very well on the picture, but there's actually some very small control jets on each wing, which helped with sharper turns. This one actually came with the ability to do lightspeed jumps, but it was a little bit iffy. Its defensive capabilities were a little bit lacking. It did come with shielding, but it only had a hyperdrive rating of 1.5. Had a crew of 1. It's a TIE Fighter, kind of standard. TIE Fighters actually do come with a little bit of storage capabilities, but it's really minor. I don't really need to go into the past ones, but they all can hold roughly 25 to 100 kilograms. Except for the VIP shuttle, which can hold 1 metric ton. For the most part, the Clawcrafts were used mostly by the Chiss, as I mentioned. They actually appear quite a lot. They appear in quite a few books. Not so much in anything else, but they do appear in Spectres of the Past and Visions of the Future. They appear in a lot of the New Jedi Order books. But there are some spelling differences. Chiss Clawcraft. Sometimes it's just called the Clawcraft. Sometimes it's the Nissus class the Nissus class Clawcraft, but that's spelled Nssis. They do appear in the Dark Nest and Legacy: The Forced Exile, but and also Fate of the Jedi. Almost exclusively in books, though, unfortunately. Yeah, and the last one for this episode is the TIE Experimental Mark V, also known as the TIE Booster. In addition to the booster ion engines, it did come with a booster engine, much like the TIE Bomb, or the TIE Missile. However, this one, while it was also remote controlled, it did come with 2 laser cannons, and it did come with a optional shielding that they were experimenting with. It's roughly 10 meters long. It was them experimenting with the idea of additional speed. Again, after the destruction of Obsidian, you didn't see any more of any of the any of the TIE experimentals, Mark 1 through 5. And again, they appear only in Star Wars X-Wing Alliance, but still, there's a lot of more interesting types of TIE fighters that the Empire has been experimenting with in various books and video games that don't appear in the movies, because they want to keep things more to the standard. Oddly enough, the TIE fighters that you're probably familiar with from episodes 4, 5, and 6, there are some slight variations from the First Order TIE fighters. I'll get into these since they don't appear in the picture. There's actually 2 new kinds of TIE fighters: the TIE FO Space Superiority Fighter and the TIE SF Space Superiority Fighter. These are the First Order fighters. For the FO Space Superiority Fighter, the reason that they changed them up was because while they're keeping with the TIE fighters, the initial design, they're changing it because in the case of the First Order, only elite pilots are allowed to use these 2 new TIE fighters, and as a result, the First Order cares a little bit more about their pilots, so there's a little bit better defensive capabilities. The original Galactic Empire kind of viewed the pilots as cannon fodder. They're the first assault, but no one really cares about them too much. If they make it back, then they make it back. Otherwise, they don't, and there's no real loss. However, the First Order sees TIE fighter pilots as a very critical aspect of their military force, and it's important that they keep as many of them alive as possible. This one is actually kind of short. It's only 6.69 meters, which is about pretty tall, actually. Since 1 meter is I don't remember it off the top of my head. But a meter is 39.39 inches. So if you want to do the math, 39.39 times 6.69. That is the length of it. It did come with a solar ionization reactor, a 1A4B, and the solar collectors were changed up as well. By the time of Star Wars Episode 7, the armaments had completely changed. Right now, the TIE Space Superiority Fighter, the FO, comes with two LS 9.6 laser cannons, which they're a little bit stronger. And surprisingly, they didn't get a name in the movies, but only in the extended information. There's not really a whole lot more to say about those. They do appear in Episode 7 as their first appearance, and the Star Wars The Force Awakens novel and junior novel, as well as one comic, the Star Wars Poe Dameron #1 Black Squadron Part 1. Not exactly the most interesting stuff to explain to you, but it did come out, well, April 6th, so you could potentially still find them in comic book stores. Oh, and then the Space Superiority Fighter. I mean, the only real difference is that it comes with an additional pair of turrets and Magpulse warhead launchers. That's really the only difference between the TIE SF and the TIE FO. Same laser cannon, same power cells, although it does run 2 ion reactors. Same height. And then I'm not really sure when I will get into it, but I will get into the second row of TIE Fighters later. Probably next week, maybe. If you are the person who this video is directed towards, you know who you are. Keep asking me questions. Start writing stuff down so I can take it home, quick research it, and then do a short video on it. Or in the case of this one, a 22-minute video and like 40 seconds. So, that's all I'm going to have for at least today. I will... Actually, you will see me before this video comes up, so... Guess you'll see me before then. Goodbye!